Hello, everyone. And Daryl, the only one I know for sure, is watching. Or, I mean, for sure, I know who you are. Whatever, because I watch your videos when I can. I'm doing this in the car because if I do it at work, which we're closed, my boss is a workaholic, so he might pop in, but we do work 6 days a week, not all day on Saturday. But anyway, it's just, I mean, I could always do it after we close, but I really don't like to. So my dog is fine in long distance car rides and when we're going places and deliveries and shopping, whatever. I have a baby stroller, yes, for him. But he's kind of expecting. So anyway, I'm going to try to be quick. I'm going to instead do this video, instead of on a miracle, I'm going to give the testimony of my fingers, because maybe people have noticed my fingers. So yes, I'm one of those people you talk about who had a lawnmower accident. So I'm just going to get to the punchline, and then if I ramble or bunny trail, that you'll have the facts. I had a Ryder lawnmower. It was a used old snapper. Just snapped my fingers right off. I made so many jokes. Anyway, and I was a court reporting student, so that's shorthand. So I'm like, I'm shorthanded. Okay. Anyway, I'm like, I'm going to be the first court reporter that can do this with this. Okay, I was always very careful, because when I would lift that trap door, if the grass was too crammed up in there, to release it, plus this was Missouri. I lived in peculiar Missouri. Okay, and for a while, my husband, his boss, had different locations in the United States. So I was mowing, that I always do. It was like 5 acres, but I only mowed about an acre. And in Missouri, they have a lot of rocks, and some are pebbles. And so when you lift that trap door, I didn't want like a pebble to shoot out and flick my finger, and then I'd lose feeling. You know, I was always careful, because you need all fingers. You need a claw to use those machines, right? It's called writing, to write. And I was at 200 words a minute, and the average person speaks, see, I'm rambling. The average person speaks at 225 words a minute. So to graduate, you need to write 225 words a minute. And they they test you out in increments of 20 words a minute. So 100 words a minute, 120, 140, 160. And it's not just a test on, you have 3 tests. You have Q&A, you have, I may not remember them now. And maybe it'll come to me. But you have literary, Q&A, and then plus you have all these other classes. You've got like anatomy, legal terminology, medical terminology. You have 4 different Englishes. You know, you should be an English major by the time you're finished with court reporting. I had all that behind me. The only class I had left, which I knew I would do at the end because I hate technology and computers, is the software, computers. And I had the old machine anyway, so I would have had to get the other one with the... So anyway, I was careful. But boy, I wrangled. That was a Ryder. There were times, and like I said, it was used. First one I'd ever owned. Obviously, my husband at the time didn't realize. I mean, we had a carport, so sometimes I left it out in the rain. Maybe he should have told me, but he was a hunter, right? So he wasn't like a gardener type. But I kind of sometimes left it out in the rain. And I don't know, sometimes it would have problems. I would just take that thing by the nose, lift it up on its rear end, and do whatever. And not while it's on, no. So, that's the question I always get is, you stuck your hand in there while it was on? Yes, because I always did it. Not when it's lifted up. I'm not talking about that. So, when I'm mowing and I'm doing that, lifting to let the grass out if it need to go out, and being careful, my fingers on the very tippy edge of that flap that you lift up, because it had a bagger, but I didn't use that. So, another thing is, there would be debris, like a stick, a rock, and when I was right upon it, the brakes were kind of slow. So this had a safety feature. So when you stop in order to get that motor to stay running, no, wait a minute. I don't remember how it worked exactly, but I'll tell you one thing right now. I sued. My husband is the one that brought it to my attention. So we sued, and I won. Now, I didn't win much. It took a couple years to go to court and all this. But I won, and I think it was like $22,000. So, and that's another story, because this lawyer actually murdered his partner in the middle of all this, between these 2 years, and he himself was in a bonded out of jail. And this was in Kansas City, Missouri, Skyrise, that this lawyer was. And, it was about a year into this, and I was working, and all of a sudden I get this email from my husband, which we were divorcing, and it was the paper write-up in the Kansas City. It was like this happened in 1997, and I think in 1998 there was a paper write-up in the Kansas City Star, and he sent it to me, and it was about my lawyer. I don't even remember his name, but it said, it was a whole write-up on this murder, that, the velocity of the blood splatter on the walls and the curtains, it was a lamp, and it was blah, blah. I never met his partner, but I did know him. And when we did finally do the deposition, when it was time to pay up and go to the thing, he was driving a Daewoo. Okay, whatever, if they still make those cars. One of those super cheap cars back then. And I guess it went to trial. It's not like I was in a courtroom, but in a room, like a conference room, in 2000. So it took that long. Anyway, he must have sold everything, and he's gonna try to get himself out of murder charges. But anyway, so what happened is, we were having a garage built because we had a carport. So in that night, it was Father's Day, and that night I was debating, it was getting dark, and I thought, should I mow or should I go to Walmart? Because I needed to go to Walmart. I'm like, I'll mow real quick. It's not dark yet. So I was, finishing up, and we were having a garage built. So there was this block of wood on the grass, and the brakes were kind of slow. So by the time I broke, and actually I was used to the brakes, so by the time I was over it, on top of the block, I knew where to stop, to where I could see it through the little trap door. And on this safety feature, which stuck in the on position, so when I stuck my hand in there, that blade shouldn't have been running. But because I'm on autopilot, and I know this so well, it didn't dawn on me that when I looked through there to reach for the block of wood, the grass was blurry. The grass was blurry. Meaning that blade is spinning. Okay? So I go, and even though, the blade isn't supposed to be engaged, and there's no way you can open that trap door unless that blade is no longer spinning. Yeah, the motor's still running. So what? The blade is not on. People are so crazy about that. They're like, what am I going to do? Turn it off and then do something? No, it's meant. There's no way you can open that trap door. I had to pull my feet up, reach, and there's no way I could have had my legs spread out like you would mowing, elongated with my foot on that safety feature, right? To keep the blade engaged. I couldn't have had my legs laid out, then reach down. I would have tipped over. I would have tipped over and fallen on my head. So you put your feet up, which disengages the blade. You bring your knees up and it disengages the blade. And I did it all the time. All the time. So, but I didn't all the time reach for stuff down in there. So I knew I was right over that block that was a scrap from building the garage. And so I open the trap door and I see it right there. And even though I know the blade is disengaged, I'm still careful. So I'm reaching, you know, my knees are up. I'm like this, with this hand obviously, pulling the door. I'm not going to be falling on my head. I'm balanced. And I reach slowly for that block. And then all of a sudden, and people ask, did it hurt? No, it didn't hurt. Even though the blade was dull, y'all. Disgusting. It was dull. It was not a clean. This is very fat because it was traumatized because it splintered my bone. And it was also chopped at an angle. So they had to chop this off a little more because, and this is like, I still got some of my first digit. As you can see, still some of this. So it chopped like at an angle because that's how I was angling. And then this fingernail actually was bruised right there. So I was putting my fingers in at an angle. Oh, and I think my thumb was a little nicked, bruised, like in my fingernail. So I was gently sticking my hand right there. And it's not like I'm sticking my hand in there. I'm like, it's like this tall, y'all, the deck of a mower. So it's not like I'm going, yeah, like I was creeped out about ever sticking my hand in a garbage disposal in a sink, but people do that all the time. What if that malfunctions and comes on, right? Or a blender. Anyway, and this was one of these lessons that somebody said about something, like the lawnmower people or the lawyer people, and they're like, you never ever trust a safety feature. Never. Not on a gun, because I had a gun then too. Oh, that's another story. Anyway, so I put my hand in there and it felt like somebody, like if you were to bang your fingers like this real quick and you feel the kind of like a funny bone feeling, but not quite. And I'm like this. I'm like, I've been hit. And I'm like, I've been hit. Oh God. Oh God. Oh God. And I kept my arm like this. And I didn't want to look. So I did this. Barely. And I saw blood drip. I didn't sit and go like forever. I just was like this. I saw it dripping. And I jumped off that mower because the first thing in my mind is my career is over. It's done. I'm like, this is not even happening. And then I had my t-shirt on, so I held it. I jumped off the mower and it just left. Ran into the house, okay, and stopped. And I was there, sitting there, holding my hand in my t-shirt that I could feel was shorter. I could feel something was gone. And I started looking. I started screaming, help me. I wasn't walking with Christ then. I was raised in it, but I left at like 18. And I can tell you about that maybe someday. Why? And then I am married to this guy who is never been saved in his life, nor any of his family and generations. Maybe his younger brother got saved, but because his whole family, he kind of was like, he didn't talk about it much or even follow. So I'm sitting here holding my hand in my shirt, bleeding, and it's not gushing, but I'm screaming, help me. Oh, no, wait. So the lawnmower jumps in there, and I'm looking around for my fingers. Then I knew my husband was in there, in the house. So I run around. I didn't want to get blood everywhere. So I open the back door and I scream in there and I said, come help me find my fingers. He was in like the office, okay, doing work. And he told me later, in his mind, he's thinking like everything was gone. 'Cause he knew I was out there mowing. And so he runs out and I go, help me find my fingers, because I was going to have them sew them back on. And we never found them. I found one later, like weeks later, and it had rained and it was puffy, and I put it in the freezer because I was still seeing the doctor because I had to have surgery, and then I had to have therapy because guess what? The inside of your finger here has no nerves that are used to being touched. This is used to being touched. So when you got new endings, you gotta, she'd have like a bowl of that bow tie macaroni and I'd have to touch it and it was like, ah! It was like somebody stabbing your finger. So you have to desensitize them. So, and then they go like paraffin wax dips and whirlpools and dumb shit that I think is stupid. But anyway, I'm like, I gotta have these sewed back on. Well, that couldn't happen. So I was looking really long time at my toes. Yeah, if you know where this is going. So it was getting kind of Frankensteinish. And I was asking my doctor, you need to take some toes off and put them here. And then they're talking about prosthesis. Oh no, you can get prosthesis. I'm like, oh cool. So this took for a long time to get prosthesis. Because I didn't know what they meant about cosmetic prosthesis. It is just that. It's just cosmetic. Like they say Daryl Hannah, the actress, has one on her middle finger. Anyway, I thought I'll do my cork porting with that. Yeah. So I am waiting. It took forever for them to make those because they did a mold of this hand and then they mirrored it and then it was like they had to make it out of rubber and they don't bend. Even though I have a little bit of a knuckle and I have this knuckle, a little bit of this digit that cannot claw anymore, but I'm like, I'm going to work. I'm going to make them work. And then they're like, you can have non-cosmetic. And I'm like, whatever, I don't care. But I thought they didn't offer me that. First, they just offered me the cosmetic. So I get them. But meanwhile, while I'm waiting on those stupid fingers that I threw away after a while, because I didn't care about the looks. I cared about my career, my school. I mean, in a way. It wasn't like super, my heart wasn't super in it. I was actually terrified of it because you cannot use a tape recorder in there. And then later on when you're transcribing it, when you go home, oh, did they say it this way or that way? If you get a comma, this is their big thing. If you get one comma in the wrong spot, it could cost the whole trial. So you have to know inflection. If somebody says O, like when people are reading a zip code or a phone number and they say O instead of 0, you have to write O, O-H. Okay? Back then, I thought, okay, so I couldn't, and then I thought, well, I'll go back to school and do the mouth one. Well, anyway, meanwhile, I'm waiting on these prosthetics that I thought was going to do it. Meanwhile, I'm like, I got to practice. I got to write. I got to keep writing. I don't want to lose my speed. And now remember, I was at 200 words a minute. I only have one more test to get it 225 words a minute to graduate. Then once you're at 225, you got to pass out of that. You got to take the 3 tests It's literary Q&A, and I don't know. It's been so many years. That was in 1997. It happened in, 1997. So, and you have to you can't make a B on those time tests. They're 5 minutes long. You cannot make a B. You have to transcribe it from your notes, and you have to make a 98 or above. You cannot have one comma. Now, when she's reading it to you, it's already punctuated. You know what's capitalized. You know what, all this. And there's all kinds of things we hear. You know, we're hearing a medical trial. We're hearing a literary. Literary is very different. And, you know, I may have been a court reporter, but I knew nothing about the law. I mean, I had a legal class. We all had a legal class. I knew some law, but they teach you some. But that wasn't what I loved. And, you know, I hated typing in high school. Typing is a total different beast. Writing, oh, I loved that. It was so fun and challenging, even though it took me a while to get from speed to speed to speed. And then when you've got to transcribe that, and they only give you an hour to transcribe it. So the higher the speed you get, the more words is in it. And they're trying to tell you to hurry up. And then you got to go do it on a typewriter back then, or a computer or something. And then I changed schools because I moved to Missouri, and they did it a little differently. I think they even let us take our tests home, and they weren't timed. But here in Texas, this school here in Texas actually got investigated because only 3% were passing the test, and it's not like you can go keep taking it. You have to wait 6 months if you fail to take it again. So anyway, when you are transcribing all 3 of these, not in one day, or they don't recommend you take all 3 in one day, but if you did, you know, I mean, you could pass out of the Q&A test, and then you get stuck on the literary test and you don't pass that yet. You've got to pass all 3 with a 98 or higher. You can't have one misspelled word, one comma that doesn't match the transcript. This is so serious. One of the teachers in Missouri, she had a cold. She had a cold and a runny nose. And in the middle of transcribing, and these teachers know how to speak with this clicky clock timer thing. They know how to speak at a certain speed. So if you're testing out of 120 speed, 140 speed, 160 speed, 180 speed, they know how to speak that speed. And those tests are serious. You don't just stop in the middle of a test that she's dictating, or else your student here is like, oh, I'm flying, honey. This is a good day for me. Woohoo, I'm good. And then the teacher's like, hang on. No, you cannot. Once she starts, even if you're a student and you're like, I give up, I effed this all up, I am not, you just kind of keep going. You're like, I already know I made too many mistakes. Oh no, I skipped too many words. Oh, and they'll test your paper too. They'll test your little sheet paper in the tray. They grade that too. Yeah, you're being graded on so many things. Then she's dictating to the student, and some of us look at the teacher speaking. Like with me personally, I don't really look at people's eyes. I look at their mouth, because I'm not deaf or anything, but people's accents are all different. And if, I don't know, I just like watch people's mouth. Maybe people get, you know, creeped out about it. I don't know, but I just will watch your mouth instead of looking you at the eyes mostly, because it does help me to understand better. Anyway, some look at the face, some aren't looking, some are doing this. Well, this didn't happen to me, but it happened to one of the people, and her nose started running, and it just kept running and running and running. Like it was a snot loogie thing going down, 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 and she couldn't stop. The teacher had to keep. So anyway, yes, that's what happened to my fingers. And I think that was basically because we left it out in the rain, it rusted a little bit, and it was probably obviously sticking many times, but I never needed to have my fingers or my hand in there. And this particular day, it stuck big time, like, because we never oiled it. I didn't know, he didn't know, I guess you had to oil them, and it finally stuck good one day, and I didn't notice that the grass was blurred, stuck. So that's all that what happened. And then it's actually it was devastating. And then maybe a week or less, I mean, I had to keep track of some things because of court, and then I had to keep wrapped, and I'd get questions like, what happened to your fingers? And that would piss me off royally, because it's like, what do you think? You see 2 big fat gauze bandages on here. What do you want to know? Doesn't it look like I had an accident? What they want to know is, what happened? Did you cut off your fingers? So I got so pissed and sick, and Missouri is called the show me state, right? Now those people are really nice over there. And you think that people in the South from Texas would be really nice? They're not. But Missouri people, oh, they're super nice. They're very nice, but they are very nosy. And they were like, what happened? And I'm like, it's a long story. I mean, I didn't, and finally I just started saying, I had an accident. Isn't it obvious? Now, go away. Then those gauze things. Then I moved to things called Coban. And I, back then it was a couple years after Lorena Bobbitt chopped off, what's his name's thingy. And I would joke, I'd say, yeah, I went to have my nails done. And it's a good thing I wasn't vain about my nails, because you had to keep them real short for court reporting. Rarely did a girl have her nails long for that, but I was never into that. And not that I was a tomboy, it's just that I couldn't afford that. Why get used to it? I'm like, I don't want to do that. And and back then the short nail jobs weren't popular. Now they are. So women have short nails. So anyway, Lorena Bobbitt, I would say, yeah, I went to go get my nails done, and I shouldn't have got on the subject of whatever his name was, because she just chopped my fingers right off. And then the lawnmower's called a snapper, and I'm like, yeah, it snapped them right off. And I'd say, yeah, I'm shorthanded. Oh, I was in shorthand. Oh, and my spelling was already horrible. And then in court reporting, you got to learn a whole new language. And it's all shorthand. With not only do you have to learn how to spell them differently, but your spelling, my spelling was horrible. You're spelling it like, let me see if I can remember some of this. Some of our alphabet, we have to simultaneously push down 2 keys to make one letter. I mean, if you guys ever want to look that up, you'll see. It takes about 9 months to learn the language before you start working on your speed. So you're like learning the language, learning the keyboard, learning the combinations, like a TH is actually 6 keys at one time simultaneously, or is it 4? And then like a question mark is all 4 on this side, and like a period is, no wait, all 4 on this side, something like that. And then when you're doing dictation of Q&A, you got to hurry up and push that Q real quick before the question, hurry up and push that answer real quick before that answer. And if somebody is speaking too quickly, or if they're interrupting too much, you'll have to say, I can't, you guys have to, so, because like I said, the average human speaks at 225 words a minute. Now, once you reach that and you're a professional now and you'll probably get a little higher in speed. You'll probably be able to handle the interruptions and the fast speaking and the, all this. Anyway, I would practice at home because we could take tapes home and you could practice. Some did, some didn't. And you have 3 different types of things to practice. Like I said, you have to practice question answer, literary, and I don't know what the other one is. So you're having to practice speed. Now, sometimes I would practice while watching TV or listening to the radio. Sometimes I'm just daydreaming because you're not always paying attention, listening. You kind of are. Of course you are. But you really learn how to listen to several things. Maybe not 100%. Of course you're not 100% focused, but you can get it. And it was good practice. And I think I covered everything then about the lawnmower accident. That's what happened. And I'm not a total idiot because I won. And even if that was taken care of and oiled and it never stuck, malfunctioned, and they went through all that. They're like, well, you didn't oil it, you didn't this. I mean, I don't know. It's my husband that pointed it out because when he was taking me, I'm sitting there holding my hand saying, help me find my fingers. And when he's helping me, he's looking, we're looking for the fingers. And he's like, come on, we got to go to the ER. You're going to die, meaning you're going to bleed to death. And I'm thinking, my shirt's not soaked with blood. What do you mean bleed to death? I'm holding it right here. I'm not bleeding to death. Get on with it. Let's find them. And he's like, no, come on, we got to go. So he drove me there. And while I'm laying in there with the doctors and the nurses and he's in there while they're looking at the situation, they had to cut a ring off and I was laying there crying. I'm like, oh, Gary, everybody knows I'm such an airhead, and what are they gonna say now? I was so embarrassed. I'm like, in junior high, this was all up in my yearbook signing. Space cadet, airhead, da-da. Now, I don't mind. That was all in love. But in my life, there have been some very cruel people to me with the airhead thing. And I'm not saying I toughened up in that, but in a way, for some reason, I automatically, you can tell, and I can be vicious. I've made people cry before. And it's not like I'm so mean and I make them cry. What it is I'm so nice because of God built me that way. I'm so nice that when my mind shuts off, I got a high tolerance. But when I've had it too much, I snap. My brain can't take it anymore. And my brain will go into another mode and I will lash out. Not physically, verbally. I've never been in a fight in my life, but verbally I will say something and it shocks them because they're like, you're so nice. And that came out of your mouth. You're so mean. You're so mean. Why'd you mean to me? And I'm like, you're the one that started it. Anyway, it's just like, I'll take it and take it and take it and take it until I've had enough. So, I forgot why I was saying that, but, I was telling him, I'm like, everybody thinks I'm an airhead. This has happened all my life. And I'm like, everybody thinks I'm an airhead, and now look what I've done to myself. And then this nurse in there, she was so sweet. Do you know what she said? She said, as cute as you are, she said it, I don't know how, like this. Oh, as cute as you are, what's 2 fingertips? Because I'm like, that almost makes me cry right now. Because I really needed to hear that. I felt stupid. I felt like bad stupid. And this was before my husband found out that it was the lawnmower's fault. Because when you're losing your fingers, you're just like, I don't care. I mean, you might have if it was a cut and dry situation, black and white. But, you know, if you look at it closely, you're like, no, 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 no. And we won because it stuck. It malfunctioned. So anyway, that's what happened to my fingers. And it's been that many years. Oh, and after a week, I was saying how I bunny trailed and interrupted myself. I call it interjecting, not interrupting. And after a few days, I don't know how long this is. Oh, it says 35 minutes. Okay, it's less than my other one. So, okay, let me say. It was like a near-death experience. Not that kind where I died. But, I mean, I felt like I've lost a piece of my body. I could have died. Even though you're not going to die from that, right? Come on. But I felt like I've never lost a piece of my body before. This is weird. This is death. This could have been death. I know that sounds stupid, but and I know I didn't feel like I was near death, but I felt like something died. Like I could have died, but not really, if that makes sense. I'll admit that does not make sense. Okay, I'll admit that one. So I'm like, now I know how these women feel when they lose a breast or you lose all your teeth. I mean, you lose a leg, you lose an arm. And never again did I look at a crippled person the same. Never did I feel pity for them with their missing an arm, a hand, a leg, a foot, whatever, or they're twisted or crippled. And because I was like, oh my gosh, I love life. I love life. I mean, I had a little bit of anxiety and stuff and a little bit of self-consciousness and stuff, but I was like born again in that sense. And I'm like, wow, I am fearless. I am fearless. Now, it did take it. That was a little bit separate from, I was still getting used to the image and the law, because I'm still thinking I'm going to do my career with no fingers, because I was getting earplugs and then I was getting those postal thumb plastic rubber thumbs, and then I would stuff those thumbs with earplugs, and then I'd have to cut off, I'd stack the thumbs, and then I could bend them a little bit, and then I'd put them on. You'd have to cut out the tippy top of some of them to stack them, and then I'd put them on, I'd shape them just right, and then I'd curl them just right, and then I would get my tapes and I'd start writing. I'd start writing to the dictation. I'm like, I'm still at 180. I'm at 180. I can do this on 180. I'm going to be the first car reporter that's truly short-handed. You know? And I did. I waited for those stupid prosthetics to come in that didn't work. And I was doing this with my little postal thumbs and earplugs stuffed in there. And I had to custom make them, of course, to fit my stumps. And this one has not much to hang on to. So, of course, I had to really wrangle with that. Stick it up higher, but I could have to still bend. It couldn't fall off. And maybe I taped it a little bitty bit. And then I'd walk around like this. Because if I was going to take a break and then have to go back, it's kind of a rigmarole to put them back on and off. So I'd be like this. Anyway, finally I gave up on it. When I got my prosthetics, the real ones, and I found out that they don't bend, I was so crushed. I'm like, screw this, just never mind. Because I don't want to have to be making these things all the time, and maybe I don't need to, because a friend of mine and I in that school in Missouri, we would pray, God, do you really want us to do this? Because she wanted to do sign language for the deaf. She was a Christian, and I was a nominal Christian. And I'm like, well, this is too scary for me. I don't want to screw up. If I get one word out of order, or one 1 comma, and I give it to them, and, you know, I don't want to have to be making these things all the time. And maybe I don't need to, because a friend of mine and I in that school in Missouri, we would pray, God, do you really want us to do this? Because she wanted to do sign language for the deaf. She was a Christian, and I was a nominal Christian. And I'm like, well, this is too scary for me. I don't want to screw up. If I get one word out of order, or 1 comma, and I give it to them, and you know, I didn't want that responsibility. And so we would like pray, God, put a stop sign. Because see, she had wealthy parents, like successful parents. Her dad was a gynecologist, and her brother was a lawyer, and her dad was a lawyer. In fact, her dad cheated on her mother. And that's such a long story. That was a miracle, because the dad came back after 7 years because the mother believed for him. And yeah, he cheated. He had a girlfriend that was so young and cute, right? And but her dad came back. And so we would pray like that. Oh, show us a stop sign, because they didn't want her to be, even though her mother was a Christian, her dad wasn't. Maybe he just fell away, but whatever. They wanted her to do something substantial and not just, but this was my stop sign, I guess. We would like, God, show me a stop sign. Should we be doing this? Do we need to proceed any further with this career choice? Anyway, I think I went over everything. So if you guys now wonder what happened to my fingers, that's it. And I wrote a letter to that nurse. I said, thank you so much. That really helped me. Oh, so yeah, I no longer felt sorry for people in, problems, because with me, it's hard to describe, but I'm like, you know what? This is nothing to be sad about. This saved my life. This changed my life. This made me a better person. I am free. I am free. Even though I was a little self-conscious. I mean, I'd be driving and I thought people from the way other lane could see she's got short fingers. So it was a little bit back and forth. But boy, I wasn't shy about things I was normally shy about. I wasn't worried about things I normally worried about. I wasn't, and I definitely was like, you don't need to feel sorry for me. I went back to work after a little while when I got them a little more desensitized, and then I had to wear some Coban, and I was working at a grocery store, and I would be using my hand. I wasn't ashamed. I'm like, yeah, I gotta use the fingers because I gotta desensitize them, and boink, 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 boink. And if people ask me, I'm like, you know what? It could have been my foot, because I heard all kinds of stories. Oh, they were mowing on a hill, and okay, I better go. Love you guys. God bless you. I hope this helps. God bless you. Bye.